Okay, it is the top of the hour. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you everybody for joining today's webinar, 5 Reasons to Integrate SAP with Microsoft 365. We appreciate you all joining us today, and the first thing I always like to do is take a second to introduce our speakers. My name is Shayna Horka, and I'm the Product Marketing Manager here at Gimmal, and I am joined by our key speaker today, Gimmal's Director of Sales Engineering, Dean Misenhimer. Now, before we get started, I have a couple of housekeeping items to go through. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, feel free to submit them in the Q&A section on your screen, and we're going to answer as many as we have time for at the end of the presentation. There will be at least one poll question that you will see pop up, so please keep an eye out for that. And as always, if you have any technical difficulties, please let us know so we can assist you. Now, before I hand it over to Dean to get started, I have just one slide here to tell you a little bit about Gimmal and how we can help you take control of your information with our suite of solutions. Founded in 2002, Gimmal is a records, information management, and governance software company that helps you balance the value your information provides with the risk it also presents. Whether you're trying to discover information in unstructured data sources, respond quickly to data requests, or comply with policies across multiple sources, Gimmal can help you achieve your information governance goals. We have a client success team and a global network of partners that deliver solutions in conjunction with our key partners like Microsoft and SAP. Gimmal's family of software products work together to let you create an efficient digital workplace. Our comprehensive solutions include records management, content governance for SharePoint, document management for SAP solutions, and Altitude, a file analysis solution. But without further ado, I will hand it over to Dean so he can go ahead and get started.
Thank you, Shayna. Thanks everybody for joining us. As we go through the webinar, please type questions in the Q&A panel, and we'll get to those at the end. So to start off, let's talk a little bit a broader picture, not just SAP, and the general problem of information chaos. There's a lot of information that's being created today. There's no secret there, right? If you just look at the amount of information you are subjected to every day between email and the internet and work information and collaboration and teams, there's a lot of information coming at you. And, that cascading effect of information growth creates a number of challenges. One of the problems is, especially as it relates to SAP, is if you're looking to archive and capture that information somewhere, doing it in legacy systems can be very expensive, right? Traditionally, SAP archiving has been done with legacy ECM solutions that are high cost and high maintenance. The cost of the licenses, the cost of the upgrades and everything else can literally run hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. And that'll quickly burn through any budget you have. If you're not, for that very reason, the cost, archiving information from SAP, you may have challenges with simply finding information and being able to respond to things like information requests, right? Or being able to get the right policies wrapped around your information and be able to manage the information the way you need to, especially if it might be in multiple locations. A lot of organizations have standardized on Microsoft 365, but you could have information in your SAP database. You could have information being archived to a legacy solution. Now you've got information in multiple locations. How do you put the right policy on it? How do you respond to a request for information in a timely fashion? And that's really what we're going to talk about today, is how Microsoft 365 and Gimmal can provide a solution for SAP. So we're going to start with a poll question, and a very simple question: where is your SAP content archived today? Is it archived to SAP Content Server, SAP's content management platform? Is it being archived to SharePoint today, either on-premise or SharePoint Online? Is it being archived to an OpenText solution? Or are you archiving to Microsoft Azure? Or are you not archiving SAP content? Or is there another platform out there? take a moment, pick your choice, and we'll we'll summarize the results here in real time and give everybody an idea of what different organizations are doing today. And I'm going to predict a varied set of results, but we'll see what the results are. So pick your favorite answer, and we'll have the results here in just a moment. All right. They're furiously tabulating away in the background. And another archiving platform is 25% of the respondents. SharePoint today is already 38%, which is great. And then we see a mix of SAP Content Server, OpenText, about another quarter of the respondents. And surprisingly, almost 15% said they don't archive SAP content. So interesting set of results, quite varied. So the title of the webinar was 5 Reasons to Integrate SAP with Microsoft 365. So let's go through the 5 reasons. So we'll start with number 1, simply the benefits of archiving SAP data to Microsoft 365. Well, the first is SAP is a complex application, right? If you've ever worked with SAP, if you've ever logged into SAP GUI, this is what it looks like, right? It's not the most intuitive, easy to use system. It is a transactional system. It's designed to manage large volumes of transactions. It's not a document management system, and it's easy to get lost, right? To move around, you have to know different transaction codes to move things, or you have to have a lot of shortcuts created. It's easy to get lost in the wrong screens. It's easy to not find the information you're looking for. It's not something that you would roll out to a broad user base. You would roll it out to people who need it to get the job done, who need it to keep your company running. Because in addition to being difficult to use, the licenses are expensive, right? So one reason for archiving information out of SAP is to broaden the access to that information. If Microsoft 365 is our strategic platform for the future, right? That's the platform we've rolled out across the organization to every desktop. That's our content management and collaboration platform. Why aren't we archiving SAP data there as well so we can bring those two worlds together? If I can provide broader access to the information, I can achieve new levels of performance, right? By building cross-platform solutions that optimize content access. SharePoint's your collaboration platform. It's your content storage and search and communication platform. Teams is used for interoffice communications. The training and the administration costs are very low. It's a cloud-ready platform, right? Unlike other ECM solutions that are out there, it was built for the cloud. And Microsoft continues to invest in that platform and expand that platform out. And so by archiving information, whether you're using SAP HANA, ECC, whether your users are coming in through Fiori apps, if the content they're storing into SAP can be archived out into Office 365, not only can I leverage that strategic investment in Microsoft 365, my enterprise content management collaboration platform now has access to a much broader set of information. And I'm able to do that in a cost-effective fashion in a cloud-ready platform. And as we talked about, it's an extensible platform. Microsoft is continuing to invest in the platform. So storing SAP content in Microsoft 365, the key thing in my mind that it does is it protects and increases the value of your information. If documents associated to transactional data in SAP, purchase orders, invoices, plant maintenance documents, contracts, if those are locked away in SAP, only SAP users have access to them. I have to give someone an SAP license and train them on how to use SAP to get to the information. If I can expand that audience and provide a broader access to that information, the value of that information increases. If I'm managing an AP process and I have a purchase order that needs approval for, If I need Shana just to review the invoice and say yes or no, pay this, why do I have to teach her how to use SAP? What if I can expose the document to her in Microsoft 365 through a chat in Teams, say, should we pay this? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, off we go. Low touch, low change management, low cost, easy to use. Your user adoption will go up as a result. Right? By archiving information and using the native interfaces SAP provides, Gimmal document management for SAP solutions allows us to set Microsoft 365 as an SAP repository. Content is automatically archived out, but for your SAP user, nothing changes. It doesn't look any different. It doesn't act any different. They access their content exactly the same way they always do. There's no change management. For your SharePoint users, they're already using SharePoint. They're already using Microsoft 365. Right now, it's just additional content that is available when they go search for information or when they're involved in a discussion in Teams or wherever it may be. That's just additional information that is now available for them to make better business decisions. And then optimization, right? At the end of the day, if you're using a legacy system to archive information to, you're paying for two different systems that are, quite frankly, somewhat redundant. Right? You've standardized on Microsoft 365, but you have another system over here that you're paying high dollars in licenses and maintenance and upgrade costs on. Retire that, archive the information to Microsoft 365. The cost, quite frankly, of taking legacy systems offline often will have a quick return on investment of the cost of configuring and setting up archiving to Microsoft 365. We had one client, for example, they retired a legacy ECM system that was costing them literally $250,000 every 2 years to upgrade to the most current version of that product. That doesn't include the annual subscription or maintenance cost. That was just the cost of doing an upgrade every 2 years to the next major version. $250,000. It doesn't take long to generate a positive return on investment. Second, you can increase user efficiency, right? If I can connect my SAP world with my Microsoft 365 world, my users can now operate we can cross business processes between the two very seamlessly. SAP provides a workflow engine, but it's complex to develop and deploy workflows in SAP. You have to know SAP development methodologies. You have to understand ABAP. You have to understand the business objects. You have to understand all of the intricacies of SAP. Plus, the resources to do SAP development are relatively specialized, and as a result, they're expensive, right? SAP projects are not known for being low-cost projects. And because those resources are expensive and they're limited, you may be competing for those resources with other departments and other SAP initiatives within your own company. So getting your workflows, getting your processes automate may or may not be at the top of the list of things that need to be done. Well, by leveraging the Microsoft 365 platform, we have low-code and no-code functionality in the platform that we can use to deploy process management applications and link to SAP applications. If I'm getting the content into Microsoft 365, I can now leverage all of the services that that platform provides and the new services that Microsoft continues to roll out. Right, so by leveraging Gimmal document management for SAP to move the content out of SAP into Microsoft, I'm now exposing that content to all of the services of the platform. And so what that allows me to do is to use things like the Power Platform in Microsoft 365. I can use Power Apps to create form-based applications that can be viewed in the browser or viewed in a mobile device and allow me to view information or upload content. I can use the native mobile apps that Microsoft provides. I can use Power Automate, which you may be more familiar with by its old name, Flow. to automate the process of routing content around for people to review. The same example I used earlier, right? I can create a process where I can add a purchase order to a transaction in SAP through SAP GUI, store that document. In the background, Gimmal Document Management for SAP Solutions automatically archives that document out of the SAP database into SharePoint Online. Power Automate sees the new document that's been added to the library, automatically kicks off a process that posts a link into my vendor management team that says, here's a new invoice from Acme Corporation. Should we pay this? Is it valid? Shana sees the note in the team, looks at it, clicks the link, views the document, says, yes, go ahead and pay this. It's my vendor. Now we can process that payment on that invoice. It's a seamless process, zero coding required to implement that. It all happens as part of the resources of the platforms. Right. We had another client as we were discussing different use cases that that they could do. They were looking at Power Apps and thinking through, hey, I'm in an operating environment. My client was in an operating environment. They were a chemical company. They have employees out in the field, out in the refineries, out in the field, and they were thinking through the possibilities. And it's like, well, I could create an application where from a mobile device, a user could take a picture of a piece of equipment, upload it, or take a picture of a document, upload it to SharePoint. It would automatically attach to the SAP transaction, and it could then trigger an SAP workflow on the SAP side. Exactly. Those are the kind of things you could begin doing without a whole bunch of custom development work, because the platforms support the process. And then, as we talked about, Microsoft continues to expand the Microsoft 365 platform. They're investing in that platform. And one of the things you may have heard about is what's called Project Cortex. Microsoft is continuing to release information about Cortex. And it's essentially an AI application that sits over your organization's structured and unstructured content in Microsoft 365. It can recognize your content and the content types. It can extract important information out of that content and organize it into various topics. It starts to leverage the intelligence of things like Microsoft Graph and the various Microsoft AI technologies they've been investing in, and the content services of SharePoint. So if I'm getting my information into SharePoint, and I'm getting it into SharePoint and able to use the transactional data from my system of record, SAP, to create well-described information in SharePoint, now I've got information that tools like Cortex and AI can readily take advantage of, right? And essentially build a better knowledge network to present that information to my users. Point number 3, you can securely manage important business documents in a compliant manner. Right? If you're in a regulated industry, if you need to have a records management program in place, if you ultimately need to dispose of content in a defensible fashion, how do you do that? If the information is in the SAP database, that becomes very difficult. If I'm archiving information out, I can begin to look at the information that's there. I can have a centralized view of information, because realistically, I may have information in multiple locations, but I can apply classification and records management policies on information once it's in SharePoint. I can leverage the retention labels that Microsoft provides. I can use tools like Gimmal Records Management to automatically classify records and put retention around records and trigger the disposition process around records and dispose of things according to my policy. So if I am in a regulated environment, I can ensure that I'm complying with both internal regulations, industry regulations, government regulations. And I can optimize my systems by ensuring that when I can get rid of information, I do, right? I don't have a bunch of redundant, obsolete, or trivial information sitting around out there that should have been disposed of long ago. And so to kind of show the same slide Shana did at the beginning, I can begin to balance the risk and the value around my information. Right. Information governance is about coordinating the strategy for all of my organizational information, my transactional data as well as my unstructured information, my documents. And information governance is about establishing the authorities, the support processes, the structure, and the infrastructure to enable information to be a useful asset and a reduced liability. Right? That's the key. And doing it in a way so that the risk mitigation, the risk management isn't so overbearing that nobody can get their job done, but we're not making it so open and so easy that we're exposing the organization to risk. That's what achieving that balance is really all about. And in today's world, you know, data residency matters. You know, where my information is stored can be a significant concern, right? If you're a multinational organization, right, where you store information related to various divisions of your company can become a big deal. And so one of the things I can put in place, if I'm archiving information out of SAP now to Microsoft 365, I can begin to drive that information to different locations based on what the information is and based on the data that I have in SAP. Right? Gimmal document management for SAP solutions allows you to route information as it's archived out of SAP to the right site collection, to the right location, based on the SAP master data. So if I have invoices or I have purchase orders related to my European vendors, those could go to a data center in Germany or in the UK. If I have information related to my Australian vendors or my Southeast Asian vendors, maybe those now go to a data center in Australia or in Singapore, wherever it may be, right? But I can begin now to route information to different locations, leveraging the multi-geo capabilities that Office 365 provides, and leveraging the routing capabilities that Gimmal Document Management for SAP provides. So now I've got data sovereignty on my information. The information is secure because it's in the right location. It's on a scalable platform, and I even do things like optimize performance. If I host my SAP environment in Microsoft Azure, and I'm leveraging Microsoft 365 as the content management platform behind SAP, you know, using Gimmal to enable that, now I've got an optimized performance. Right? And if you want to find out more information on the multi-geo capabilities, there's a link there at the bottom of the slide you can take a look at. And then I can begin to prepare for the journey to HANA. If you're not familiar with HANA, well, it can actually mean two different things. The first is HANA is actually a road on the eastern side of the island of Maui in Hawaii that winds all the way down the side of the island and leads you to a small, you know, a small town there. But HANA is also the name of SAP's high performance in-memory database. And it's where SAP wants their clients to move, and they've set a deadline for customers to move to HANA in the next few years. Well, the reason this is a big deal is HANA stores everything in memory. It's designed to do real-time transactional performance. So everything's done in memory. It's not designed to store documents or what are typically referred to as blobs in a database, because blobs bloat your database cost without really adding any benefit. That's why you want to archive data out, because the more in-memory database you use, the more it costs. And it can literally be thousands of dollars per gigabyte. And it can create performance issues down the road. So rather than spending thousands of dollars per gigabyte, because sometimes 30 to 40% of an SAP database can actually be documents, instead of spending that much money, why aren't you using your Microsoft 365 capacity that you've already deployed and you're already paying for? Right? Depending on your plan, you may have a terabyte in your tenant available, plus a certain amount of gigabytes per user. And most of that is, quite frankly, probably unused. So you can take a look at leveraging that storage adding additional storage if you need to relatively inexpensively, and leveraging the platform that you have as an archiving platform. And so, man, this all sounds great. How do we get started? How do we do this? Right? How do we begin archiving to Microsoft 365? Well, it's actually pretty straightforward. It's easy enough to do an export-import from one system to another. And quite frankly, SAP provides the tools to make it even easier. We've had clients that have deployed Gimmal document management for SAP solutions, done a migration, and been up and running in 4 weeks or less. Right? It's not a difficult deployment. What that does is it allows you to realize the benefits and the return on investment pretty quickly, right? And get ready for HANA and leverage your enterprise SharePoint deployment, and quite frankly, cut your IT spend if you can retire a legacy environment as a result. Quick case study of a client who actually did this. Apache, Gimmal client, simplified their content management needs with a modern solution, the combination of Microsoft 365 and Gimmal. They had an old FileNet system that they needed to retire, right? But they needed to do that, they needed to integrate SAP with Microsoft 365, and they had 18 million accounts payable and maintenance operations documents that had to be migrated to do that. So the solution was they used Gimmal document management for SAP solutions and modernized their SAP content management by using Microsoft 365 as the backend content management platform. Gimmal migrated 18 million documents from FileNet to Microsoft 365 and configured document management for SAP solutions to integrate SAP with Microsoft 365. The outcome was Apache was able to retire a 20-year-old FileNet system, simplifying their IT organization and lowering their cost. And the transition required zero change management to the SAP user experience. Nothing changed for the SAP users, right? That's as good as it gets. And so at the end of the day, it's about putting the critical information where people work, right? Leveraging your existing investments and integrating the business processes between your two key enterprise platforms. So what does this look like in the real world? Just to give you an idea, we're not going to do a live demo today, but to give you an idea, I'm in SAP, I'm looking at a maintenance transaction, I've got an equipment tag, it tells me here's the maintenance notification number, I've got a pump that's broken down. Well, I want to see the documents associated with that, so I click on the pull down and it brings up my attachment list, and I can see that there are 4 documents associated to the maintenance notification. There's a picture of the pump, there's a process and instrumentation diagram, the PID, and there's 2 documents that may be spec sheets, maintenance documents, whatever. Well, unbeknownst to the SAP user, those documents are actually stored in a SharePoint site collection dedicated to plant maintenance. You can see them there in the middle of the screen. And the other thing you see is there's a lot of information associated with those documents. And that's because if we bring SAP GUI back up here for reference, as we archived the documents out of SAP into SharePoint, instead of just sticking a document out there with a reference to the name or just a link to the document, we're actually able to relate transactional data in SAP like the notification number, the notification description, the equipment tag, the plant maintenance order number. We're able to relate that information down and store it in the metadata columns in SharePoint. So now if I want to go search for everything related to equipment ID TEQ00, or I want to go search SharePoint for any maintenance notifications related to pumps, I can do that and I can get back a wealth of information. I don't have to do that through SAP. The information becomes high value. And so we're going to close it here with our last poll question, which is, if you'd like to see a live demonstration of what I just showed you, Gimmal document management for SAP solutions, click yes. If not at this time, then click that, and we will be back in touch with you after the webinar. We're going to open it up for questions now. So Shana, I will flip it back to you.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I want to be respectful of time. This was only supposed to be a 30-minute webinar, so I want to get at least one question in during the polling. So the question we have here, Dean, is can we also retrieve master data from SAP to store with the document in SharePoint?
We can. That's kind of one of the examples that I just showed here in the click-through demonstration. As the documents are stored out, we can map and configure whatever master data from SAP you want, and you can configure that to any metadata columns that you've set up in SharePoint. And what's important about that is it's not a one-time sync where it's just a push of information and we're done. That information remains active. So at a point in time, if I were to update information in SAP, those changes and those updates would be automatically pushed down to the documents that are archived in SharePoint Online, right? So it becomes a live link. Same thing if, because SAP is our master data system, if one of the documents were to be removed from the transaction, it would automatically be removed from SharePoint in the background.
Great. And if you want to go to the next slide where it has our contact information, again, I want to be respectful of time. So if anybody has any further questions, feel free to email either one of us directly. Our email addresses are right there up on the screen. We'd be happy to answer any questions, set up a demonstration, or provide any other resources for you. Additionally, Dean, if you want to go to the next slide, you can always visit us at our website, www.gimmal.com, or email our general info@gimmal.com email address if you have another question not pertaining to this webinar. For those interested in the recording of this webinar, we will send it out in the form of a thank you email, so please keep an eye out for that within 24 to 48 hours. But thank you everybody for joining, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.